again, and then Avery Bancroft accepted that idea. You heard from Corey Hyde. Avery Bancroft stuffed $200,000 into a briefcase, went to room 312 where he was supposed to meet Chase Covington. Chase Covington didn't show up. So what did Avery Bancroft do? He left to find Chase Covington. Where did he find Chase Covington? He found him in the VIP room of the Black Bear, as you heard from Allie Thomas. And Danny Hoy saw the video surveillance that the two of them entered a security blind spot. The same security blind spot that Avery Bancroft asked beforehand about and then used to his advantage so he could secretly meet Chase Covington in that security blind spot. So there the exchange happened. The defense has already admitted the bribery happened. And the day after, April 17th, Chase Covington votes for Avery Bancroft's casino. Therefore, Your Honor, we've proved by preponderance of the evidence, it's more likely than not that the two, Avery Bancroft and Chase Covington, conspired for this bribe to happen.
Counselor, I will give you one chance to convince me that your client saying he gave Chase Covington a bribe doesn't meet the preponderance level that State v. Owens requires.
Yes, the only thing that the prosecution has just described to you is the prosecution has just described to you how the bribe took place, that the defendant put money into a briefcase and then met with Chase Covington and gave Chase Covington that bribe. Well, that's already been cleared up. The defendant has long admitted that he gave Chase Covington this bribe at this time and place, but no witness that the state has called has been able to say anything to seeing a co-conspiracy between Avery Bancroft and Chase Covington. I would just ask that the statements of Chase Covington be stricken from the record.
Well, I certainly think it's a close call, and your arguments are convincing. The standard is very deferential to the state, and given the nature of this crime, especially that it's stipulated too that a bribe did occur, those statements are going to be allowed to come in under 801, and we are assume we're all ready to proceed to closing arguments.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
People?
Your Honor, before I begin my closing argument, may I constructively read the jury instructions to the jury?
Sure, we will assume that they were read to the jury.
Thank you. May I proceed?
You may.
May it please the court. Avery Bancroft could have folded, but instead, he went all in. Now, at this point in the trial, you have heard all of the facts, and you have seen all of the evidence. You have heard that on April 16, 2015, Avery Bancroft bribed Chase Covington for Chase Covington's vote on his new casino proposal. Now, as you also know, we are not here today to determine whether or not a bribe occurred, but rather, you are here today to determine whether or not Avery Bancroft committed bribery without entrapment. Now, as the prosecution in this case, we have a burden of proof. It is our burden to prove to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Avery Bancroft was not entrapped. Now, what does this mean? This means that if at the end of the trial you are left with doubts based on reason and common sense, the prosecution has failed to meet their burden. But we have not, because we have provided you with enough evidence to show that Avery Bancroft willfully and knowingly committed bribery. So let's look at what entrapment means. For you to find that Avery Bancroft was not entrapped, it is our duty to prove to you that Avery Bancroft was predisposed and not induced by law enforcement. Now, what this means is that Avery Bancroft would have bribed Chase Covington anyway. Whether or not Avery Bancroft ever met Mickey Keenan, he would have bribed Chase Covington. So let's go through the timeline of events of what has been discovered here at trial today. Beginning with March 31st, 2015. Now, we heard from several different witnesses that on this date, a meeting took place in room 312 at the Black Bear Casino. In attendance at this meeting was Avery Bancroft, Corey Hyde, and Officer Keenan. It is at this meeting Avery Bancroft says he is willing to do whatever it takes to get that casino license. he knew that he would need to make Chase Covington happy. And before leaving that meeting, he said, "Thanks for greasing the wheels." Now, Mr. Bancroft came before you and he said that he didn't know a bribe was being talked about. Well, members of the jury, his ignorance does not equal his innocence. So let's fast forward a little bit, because we know that another meeting took place on April 13th. So a day before this meeting, Avery Bancroft went ahead and emailed Daniel Hoy, head of security at the Black Bear, about extra security measures. Furthermore, he sought out Daniel Hoy to ask about where the blind spots are. Now, Avery Bancroft testified today that the reason he came up with these extra security measures is because he didn't want Shannon Stark to hear about his casino. Members of the jury, he makes no mention to Daniel Hoy in this email about Shannon Stark. Furthermore, he testifies that he does not trust that he does not trust Daniel Hoy. However, he still leaves Daniel Hoy in charge of the most important meeting he may ever have. After all, a new casino license is only given out once every decade. Now, we know at that meeting, the April 13th meeting, Chase Covington said he would need 250,000 reasons to vote for Avery Bancroft's casino proposal. Now, how does Avery Bancroft respond to this? Avery Bancroft says he would see what he can do. Now, at the end of that meeting, Corey Hyde knew that he had to buy a new briefcase for Avery Bancroft because he had asked for one. Members of the jury, in the state of Midlands, it does not merely mean providing a defendant with the opportunity, means, and facilities to commit the offense for inducement to have occurred. Even if Corey Hyde did buy that briefcase, as he has testified to, that is not enough for inducement. Furthermore, Mr. Hyde saw Avery Bancroft put $200,000 into that briefcase. Now, you also heard testimony today from Avery Bancroft himself that he didn't want Keenan to be around. We are here today because Avery Bancroft says Officer Keenan entrapped him, but Avery Bancroft did not even want Officer Keenan around. How do we know this? He emailed Corey Hyde and said, "Are you sure you're okay with Keenan coming?" He even says he doesn't trust Corey Hyde, but he still emails Corey Hyde because he's not sure if he wants Officer Keenan in attendance at the meetings. He further emails Chase Covington with the same idea, but do we really need Keenan for this? We are all here today because Avery Bancroft is alleging Officer Keenan entrapped him. But he's not sure if he needs Officer Keenan. Now, let's talk about the experts that we saw today. We saw two experts. Dr. Warren, who has years of experience and came before you and said he cannot say with any degree of professional certainty that entrapment occurred. Now, in opening statements today, a young man came before us and said that Dr. Lorien would prove that Officer Keenan did not use his undercover operations correctly, and Officer Keenan did not have sufficient training. Members of the jury, today it looked like it was Mr. Lorien who did not have sufficient training. He was paid to come to trial and did not know what he was testifying about. Members of the jury, you have no choice but to find Avery Bancroft guilty because he could have folded, but he went all in. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense, do you have a closing argument?
Yes, I do. Permission to proceed?
Yes.